and solve the mystery.
India's Odisha state will screen 650,000 people for COVID-19 symptoms after they were evacuated from the path of Cyclone Yas. A local official says COVID-19 precautions were observed during the evacuation process and masks were distributed. Odisha and West Bengal are among some of the worst hit states by the powerful storm, which made landfall yesterday. At least 9 people, including 4 children, are dead. Tens of thousands of homes have been destroyed and more than 2 million people were evacuated in the 2 states. Authorities have warned it will be a huge challenge to maintain social distancing at shelters against the backdrop of the pandemic.
बात्या पवन बहुत जोर है घर छपर उठे नेला छपर उपरे भी गछ बड़ बड़ गछ पड़ एपर्यंत फायर स्टेशन वाला आसी ना बर्तमान 2-3टा छुआ को लेकिन कईटिकी जी बड़ हैरान होती
बुकिंग करी माँ मो जेजेमा माने वैक्सीन होगा बट माने आज डेट देले किंतु आज एबे आसिक आम फेरिकी जाऊँ कि आज ना एक्सटेंड कर देइछंती बात्या 3 दिन.
Neha Punya in New Delhi tells us how relief efforts are faring in the wake of the cyclone.
Well, for the last few days, the focus really was on evacuating as many people as possible, and it was a race against time. There were more than 1.5 million people evacuated along India's east coast, many of them in the states of West Bengal and Odisha. But in the aftermath of this cyclone, as it moves northwestwards towards the state of Jharkhand and eventually towards North India, where it's likely to weaken over the next 12 hours, the focus is now shifted to relief operations and rescue operations. We're now seeing thousands of army personnel as well as the National Disaster Response personnel teams on the ground who are rescuing stranded citizens. Many villages, about 1,000 in the state of West Bengal, have been inundated. Many of them have been cut off. And the government there saying about 50,000 people have been rendered homeless in the aftermath of this cyclone. Similarly in Odisha as well, many coastal regions saw extreme inundation, widespread flooding because of tidal waves that were as high as 14 feet. So the focus, officials say, is on rescuing citizens who are stranded in these regions, getting food and aid to them, ensuring medical aid reaches those people who've suffered any kind of injuries in the aftermath of this cyclone. The government in Odisha also promising free food grains to villagers who've been impacted by this cyclone for the next 1 week. Of course, there was extensive preparation, which is why officials say that the loss to life from this cyclone has been minimal, but it will take several days to ensure that normalcy returns to these regions.
Your Asia Business Update is next with Eugenia Lim, including China and the US have resumed trade talks. What does that mean for phase 1 of their deal signed last year? Later, China says its trial of an Australian academic involves state secrets, justifying it held behind closed doors.
Love city living? Singapore Property Show presents stunning developments in the core central region. The ultimate in luxurious living with access to the best high-end restaurants and boutiques right in the heart of town. Experience stunning 4D virtual tours of these properties and get expert advice on property investments at our webinars. It's all happening at sps2021.99.co. Register now. The Singapore Property Show 2021 is proudly organised by MediaCorp and our esteemed partners.
This Saturday, could rising inflation derail the post-pandemic economic recovery?
Those parts of the market that are more overvalued could easily get hit.
Relooking China's growth model as its population ages.
Chinese babies are not growing into industrial workers in the future.
Plus, how to be a part of the blockchain boom. Saturday on CNA.
This June, Asia's past, present and future comes together. Race to feed the world as scientists, farmers and entrepreneurs solve the impending food crisis. Journalist Yu Maraki unveils the transformation of Japan's social and political identity in Deciphering Japan. and relive the history of the Chinese Communist Party as it marks 100 years of existence. This June on CNA.
He's just looking at us with his eyes wide open. Oh, it's so cute.
I'm Shushan, and in this series, I'll be tracking into hidden parts of Singapore.
Oh my God, treacherous!
To find out what's being done to save our biodiversity.
Every animal plays a significant role.
And if we're running out of time.
It seems that there is an uptrend in number of roadkills.
It's in our nature. Video on demand on CNA.Asia.
Have fun while breaking a sweat on your next visit to Gangnam. Enjoy the weightlessness of bungee fitness, or learn the health benefits of pole dancing. So don't miss the opportunity to feel the burn with the latest workout trends in Korea. Gangnam Insiders Picks, Sunday on CNA. This program is brought to you by the Gangnam-gu office.
Bearing the brunt of worsening global warming.
As we see the whole landscape changing, it is really impacting our way of life.
Can we reduce our carbon footprint to fight climate change?
We're doing our bit to not rely so much on the coal-fired power stations to power what we do in our house.
Are the steps we're taking really enough? CNA correspondent, Fighting Climate Change. Friday on CNA.
In business news, China and the US should work together to push for the implementation of the Phase 1 trade deal they signed in January last year. That's according to a spokesman of the Chinese Commerce Ministry. The ministry confirmed earlier that trade talks between both parties have resumed again. The US Trade Representative Catherine Tai spoke with China's Vice Premier Liu He over the phone. The ministry described the exchange as constructive, pragmatic, candid, and based on mutual respect and equality. The two negotiators also underscored that bilateral trade between their countries is very important. Both parties are set to assess the fate of the US-China Phase 1 trade agreement. Under the deal, Beijing pledged to increase its purchases of American products and services by at least $200 billion through 2020 and 2021. Ms. Tai previously said she expects China to live up to its commitments under the two-year agreement, and that the path forward for their trade ties will hinge on whether or not the pact has been effective. Profits at China's industrial firms jumped by 57% in April from a year ago. That's down significantly from March, when they almost doubled. The slower pace of growth is due to high commodity prices and weaker performance in the consumer goods sector. Chinese officials say some consumer industries are not yet at pre-pandemic levels, and they warn that the foundations of economic recovery for China are not yet secure, with uneven improvement in corporate performance. China's economy is expected to moderate this year after logging record growth in the first quarter. One analyst explains the concerns over the health of the world's second-largest economy.
With the headline industrial profit growth, we have to bear in mind two things. One is the base effect is obviously causing a lot of distortions. Even at 50-60% year-on-year growth rate, it's still an astronomical rate. And we know that it's not a genuine reflection of the real activity. The second one is that within the headline industrial profit, you got obviously the mining sector, which is benefiting a lot from the higher global commodity prices, energy prices, and so also is the sectors that are supporting mining, right? The mining equipment, the machinery manufacturers, they are also benefiting as well. But there are other industries that are taking these raw materials as inputs, so their profit margins and profitability growth would come under a little bit of pressure. But nevertheless, I think today's data is consistent with early activity activity numbers like the PMI, like the industrial production, manufacturing production for April. Overall, all of these data are suggesting that the industrial and manufacturing sector continue to perform well, and they are the better performing part of the Chinese economy, certainly compared to consumption and services, which growth remains fairly lackluster. We really need the consumption and the services part of the economy to catch up to make